Hello and welcome again to this edition of FiTV. I'm your host, Brad Swanson. This is Florida Internet and Television's show where we bring you the latest that's happening in Florida's capital. We're here at Andrew's Restaurant on Inauguration Day. We are here amongst the hustle and bustle of candidates, or formerly candidates, being sworn into cabinet member positions. It's an amazing day here in Florida's capital. I am joined by my co-host, Brian Burgess, publisher of The Capitalist, former Rick Scott inside media guy, and today we have Steve Schale, a regular on FiTV, Barack Obama's former campaign strategist for the state of Florida and elsewhere. Steve, welcome.
Great to be on, Brad.
So glad you're here. All right, so let's just kick it off, right? So Democrats, what top insider narratives are you hearing them hopeful for, worried about? What are you hearing?
Give us all your secrets.
Yes.
No, I mean, I think Democrats are excited at going into this. I mean, first of all, it's the first time we've had somebody on the cabinet since Alex Sink. Certainly that creates an increased platform opportunity to organize and talk about issues. But yeah, Democrats had pretty significant gains in the legislature as well, picking up, I think, 6 or 7 seats in the state House, another seat in the state Senate. That just increases their ability to influence the process. And so, with this obviously huge change, the entire cabinet turning over, and it's a time of optimism.
Right. So, as you've said before, right, being a Jaguars fan has prepared you for previous administrations, but you guys are kind of riding high right now, at least with you got a new statewide, member of the cabinet.
Right. Nikki Fried is we just talked about it in the last segment with Matt Dixon.
Yeah.
And she is now the lone statewide office holder for Democrats. Does she become the face of the party, do you think?
Yeah, in a lot of ways she is. I mean, we kind of went this with Alex Sink when she was CFO. In that, first of all, the state cabinet, as you know, does a lot more than regular voters understand. So it's a significant position. It's a place where she can have influence on a wide variety of policy issues, not just within her own purview. But also, I think you'll see her pick her spots, like she has, for example, on marijuana reform, really engage outside of her office. But the biggest thing that I think she's done so far is done a really good job of putting together an office that is going to allow her to be successful. The more successful she is at doing her actual job, the bigger platform she's going to have on other issues. And so I think for Democrats, we got to be careful that we don't try to roll her out too much, try to encourage her to get too involved, let her do her job. But I'm excited about the way she's approached her election and the transition, and I think she's going to be great.
Who do you think her biggest influences within the leadership of the Democratic Party are going to be, the Democratic Party in Florida? Who do you think those influencers are, or who do you see?
Well, I mean, I think right now it's kind of a jump ball on who all's sort of there. I mean, obviously, I think you've got Mayor Gillum, who is trying to figure out what he's going to run for president or stay involved in Florida politics. Folks like Gwen Graham, you've got Buddy Dyers, and folks, there's a lot of people that are sort of playing around right now.
Yeah.
I don't think there's sort of a clear-cut future leader kind of where we go. But in terms of controlling the narrative here and driving the message of Democrats out of here, Nikki is our voice.
Yeah, that's amazing. All right, so let's move to kind of a wheelhouse that we love to go to Steve Schale about, which is the presidential race.
Yeah.
You have a very cool friend in Vice President Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Recently, we've had several people make iterations that they're let their intentions known. They're going to run for president.
Andrew Gillum's still thinking about it.
Andrew Gillum's leading for him.
You've not ruled yourself out yet.
No, I'm of age. I can run.
Senator Warren. So what's going on? Is Vice President Biden gonna run, or what are you hearing? What are you seeing? What's the current message?
Well, one of the things I love about Joe Biden is he's the same guy in front of the cameras as behind the cameras. So as reporters ask me these questions, I often say, you're going to find out the same time I do, because he's, most likely to say publicly. But as he said for a year now, he's going through the process of deciding. I suspect that, within the next few weeks or months, you'll see him make a decision. But what's interesting about this is, it's not, as he said publicly many times, it's not really a political decision about whether or not he can win or whether or not he can put together a team. This really is a deeply personal decision in terms of whether the family is prepared for him to, take off for a couple of years and go do this. And so, our job is to be ready for him to say yes or no. And so if he says yes, then we'll go. And if not, then he's made the right decision for him.
He can almost be like not the anti-Trump, but rather just Joe. Just Joe. He can run that way, but is that enough to satisfy the Democratic Party to win the nomination? Because I think he'd be a strong candidate as just Joe, right? Not the anti-Trump, but does it get him to the nomination?
Well, I mean, I think that Joe Biden has the interesting ability, and if you see it in some of the polling, of really unifying some of these factors in our party. And, in that he's an establishment guy, he's got people trust, they have confidence in, but yet, he's been a leading progressive on a lot of things. He was out front on gay marriage, he was very involved in issues around equality equality for women earlier in his career. Helped sponsor some of the early Clean Air Acts, and so I mean, he's got a nice track record to talk about. But most importantly, he's also, I think, the guy who's frankly got the best shot of beating Trump. And so, but you know how these things work. We'll get a bunch of folks get in. We'll go fight it out in Iowa. We'll see what happens.
Well, Steve, we always love hearing your insights. You're so dialed in at so many different levels of the Florida political spectrum, the national one. We're grateful for your time that you spend on FiTV and sharing your insights. We appreciate it.
It's always fun. It's always fun. Thanks again.
Thanks for coming on. Yeah. Brian, as always, you're an amazing co-host, and it'll be fun. Yeah. That's all the time we have for today's episode of FiTV. Thanks for tuning in. But before you go, make sure you hit us up on our social media feed. And for now, thanks for tuning in.